Flight bound for Bali makes a U-turn to Melbourne after a passenger runs amok.
Witnesses say the instigator raged out after she thought someone stole her phone. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gian Alyanes.
I am Nina Eala Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. The Philippines and the U.S. rebuffs claims that their alliance is aimed against China.
U.S. President Joe Biden is set to host President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida at the White House next month.
India gears up for the world's largest multi-phase general national election.
Japan finally raises interest rates in an effort to counter inflation.
And Filipino tennis player Ayala upsets Italian legend Sara Errani in the Miami Open.
Las Vegas, Nevada,
España,
Paris, France,
United Kingdom,
Washington, D.C.,
London Bureau, Papua New Guinea,
in New York,
Washington, D.C.
Mata ng Agila,
Mata ng Agila. Mata ng Agila International.
Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines and the United States have denied claims that the two nations' alliances have been aimed against China. This is after U.S. State Secretary Antony Blinken met with Foreign Affairs Chief Enrique Manalo, where the two top officials discussed issues regarding the West Philippine Sea. According to Secretary Manalo, the cooperation between Washington and Manila is aimed at improving the Philippines' capacity to address calamities and reinforcing the country's security and defensive abilities.
And that is the main purpose behind this, to enhance Philippine defense and security interests, as well as operations on humanitarian issues. They are not aimed at any third country.
Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, expresses gratitude for the U.S.'s support on the maritime incident that occurred in the South China Sea. Blinken, on his part, reaffirmed Washington's commitment to the Mutual Defense Treaty when armed attacks hit the Philippines.
Stand behind it. Article 4 of that treaty extends to any armed attacks on Filipino armed forces, on public vessels, on aircraft. So we've been very clear about that, very consistent about that.
The White House has released a statement citing that United States President Joe Biden will host President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for a summit on April 11. In a statement, a White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said, and I quote, "At the summit, the leaders will advance a trilateral partnership built on deep historical ties of friendship, robust and growing economic relations, a proud and resolute commitment to shared democratic values, and a shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific." The April meeting would mark the inaugural Trilateral Leaders Summit between the U.S., the Philippines, and Japan. Jean-Pierre noted that the trilateral cooperation is expected to be discussed during the April summit. The press secretary also disclosed that Biden will reaffirm the ironclad alliance between the U.S. and the Philippines as part of his commitments to upholding international law and securing a stable Indo-Pacific.
The Philippines and Cambodia have pledged to collaborate on addressing the urgent issue of illegal mine and explosive usage, which adversely affects both nations. Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. and Cambodian Ambassador to the Philippines Phan Phuv convened to discuss this pressing matter, acknowledging the significant danger it poses to civilians and communities. Cambodia remains one of the world's most landmine countries, a legacy of past civil wars, resulting in one of the highest numbers of amputees per capita. Meanwhile, the Philippines still grapples with the frequent use of command-detonated explosives by Maoist guerrillas. Both countries have ratified the Convention on Cluster Munitions, an international treaty that prohibits the use, transfer, production, and stockpiling of cluster munitions like landmines.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has emphasized the importance of rehabilitating the Ninoy Aquino International Airport to enhance government revenues and improve the overall experience of travelers using its terminals. President Marcos acknowledged the airport's long-standing issues and described the 170.6 billion pesos for the Eala modernization project as a significant catch-up plan. This initiative is expected to generate approximately 900 billion pesos in revenue for the national government during its 25-year concession period, equivalent to an annual sum of about 36 billion pesos. However, the president said, and I quote, "This undertaking is not just about revenues that will be remitted to the treasury alone, but resources invested in the airport. And in many ways, it is an investment in our future."
The Philippine delegation submitted 8 sites to be included in UNESCO's tentative list of World Heritage Sites. Among the prospective sites are the fortifications of the walled city of Manila, the sugar cultural landscape of Negros and Panay, the Agusan Marsh Wildlife Sanctuary, the Samar Island Natural Park, and the Cordillera Rice Terraces Extension. The Philippine delegation also added to the submissions the historic towns and landscape of the Al Volcano and its caldera lake and the Gitan Range Wildlife Sanctuary in Pujada Bay. By far, the Philippines has 6 sites that made it into the UNESCO World Heritage List, which include the historic city of Vigan, the Cordillera Rice Terraces, the Mount Hamiguitan Range Wildlife Sanctuary, the Puerto Princesa Subterranean River, and the Tubataha Reefs Natural Park. The heritage sites, according to UNESCO, are places on Earth that are outstanding universal value to humanity that are to be protected for future generations to appreciate and enjoy. Meanwhile, the country has 16 more pending sites included in the list in 2015, 2006, and 1993, one of which is the Chocolate Hills Natural Monument, which is currently pestered by controversy because of the cottages, resorts, and other man-made structures built on its foothills and other parts. Overall, there are 1,199 properties inscribed in UNESCO's heritage list worldwide.
Coming up, Hong Kong passes the new national security law. Putin addresses Moscow after his electoral victory. And Biden warns Netanyahu on Rafah assault. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
Nating taxi drivers ang didiretso ang biyahe hanggang jackbox round at magkakaroon ng chance sa manalo ng 180,000 pesos. Totoo ba yun, basta driver, sweet lover?
Yes, sir.
Anong tawag sa wika ng Austria?
Si Mandarin po. Saya lang, sir.
Ba't ka masaya?
Parang mali.
Para game!
Agad! Agad!
Let's get together. Sunday 25.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Pyongyang said North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw firing drills of its super-large rocket launcher. The drills came after Seoul said that North Korea had fired several short-range ballistic missiles into its eastern seas. Last week, the United States and South Korea wrapped their major annual military exercise, prompting Pyongyang to conduct live-fire drills. South Korean news agency reported that Pyongyang's rocket launcher, dubbed KN-25, was classified as a short-range ballistic missile. North Korea claimed that the weapon has the capability to equip with a tactical nuclear warhead.
South Korean authorities have issued notices to temporarily suspend the licenses of 2 doctors in its first punishment since trainee doctors walked off their jobs.
때문에 사실은 개인 일개 전공의로서는 사실 굉장히 불안한 마음이고 정말로 면허가 정지가 되면 어떡하지? 그냥 우스갯소리로 이제 저는 음식하는 걸 좀 좋아하는데 그냥 뭐 브런치 가게나 차릴 걸 한번 고민을 해보자. 그냥 그런 식으로 좀 넘기고는 있습니다. 근데 어쨌든 불안하고 무섭고 이거에 대한 개인적인 생각은 정말 내가 과연 민주주의 국가에서 살고 있나라는 생각도 하고 있습니다.
The walkout was staged in protest of a government plan to increase medical school enrollment. 2 senior members of the Korean Medical Association received a 3-month license suspension notice that takes effect from April 15, adding that doctors are accused of instigating collective action despite the government order to do so. The latest punishment comes as the prolonged walkout has been putting a strain on the medical system. Medical school professors, who also dispense health care, have said they would join the labor action and resign if the government does not take steps to resolve the standoff.
저도 만약에 제가 의사가 아니라고 한다면 그렇다면은 의대 정원을 늘리는 거에 대해서 지지할 수도 있을 거라고 생각을 합니다. 하지만 지지하는 사람들이 많다고 해서 그 정책이 옳은 거는 아니라고 생각합니다. 그리고
Thousands of trainee doctors who play key roles in providing emergency care and surgeries walked off the job in late February to protest a government plan to increase enrollment at medical schools by 2,000 spots a year from the current 3,058. President Yoon Suk-yeol has shown no signs of backing down from the plan, saying it is essential to fix a doctor's shortage that ranks among the most acute in the developed world.
특히 업무 개시 명령은 우리 전공의선생들에게 해당되질 않습니다. 왜냐하면 업무 개시 명령은 파업한 사람들한테 내는 거거든요. 개인의 일신상의 이유로 사직한 사람에게 업무 개시 명령을 내리고 복지부 직원들과 경찰을 병원에 투입해서 전공의들이 출근했나 안 했나 살피는 것 모두 불법 행위입니다.
Hong Kong's Legislative Council unanimously passed a new national security law that expands the government's power to crush dissent.
今日係香港嘅歷史時刻，係香港等待咗26年8個月零19日嘅歷史時刻。我將簽署維護國家安全條例嘅法案，我將條例喺23號刊憲公布實施。即維護國家安全條例將喺2024年3月23日正式生效。
The legislation is widely seen as the latest step in a sweeping political crackdown that followed pro-democracy protests in 2019, following a similar law imposed by Beijing 4 years ago that has already largely silenced opposition voices in China's financial hub. The safeguarding national security law includes new measures on treason, espionage, external interference, state secrets, and sedition. Rights groups, foreign governments fear fast-track law will erode civil liberties and may be used to silence critics. The new law threatens a wide range of actions authorities call threats to national security, including treason and insurrection, to be punishable by life in prison. Lesser offenses, including the possession of seditious publications, could also lead to several years in jail. Some provisions allow criminal prosecutions and extradition for acts committed anywhere in the world.
India's general elections, boasting nearly 970 million voters, or over 10% of the global population, stand as the largest democratic exercise in the world. Scheduled from April 19th to June 1st, the general elections span a remarkable 44 days before culminating for the announcement of results on June 4th. This extensive duration is necessary due to India's vast size, along with the monumental logistics required to ensure that every registered voter has the opportunity to cast their ballot. With a staggering 969 million registered voters, India's electorate surpasses the combined population of the European Union. The electoral process to elect 543 lawmakers to the lower house of parliament will unfold over 7 phases, with India's 28 states and 8 federal territories casting their votes at different times.
In a revealing court filing on Monday, lawyers of former United States President Donald Trump told a New York appeals court that their client has failed to secure the $464 million civil fraud penalty. New York Attorney General Letitia James brought the civil fraud lawsuit against Trump in 2022, accusing him and his adult sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, and other officials with the Trump organizations of manipulating financial statements to get favorable terms from banks and insurers. Trump claimed innocence, but Judge Arthur Engoron found him liable for fraud last fall. Judge Engoron ordered Trump to pay a penalty of $355 million, which, with interest, came to a total of over $464 million. But now, Trump's legal team argued that finding a company to back a bond of nearly $500 million plus millions of dollars in interest is a practical impossibility. Lawyers for Trump explained that he has tried to get help from at least 30 companies that can post the bond, but none of them could. And now Trump faces the state's imminent deadline to enforce the judgment against him. To file for an appeal, defendants are commonly required to post a bond payment in excess of the penalty against them. But Trump's lawyers requested a stay in the execution of the monetary portion of the civil fraud ruling, pending the outcome of an appeal process. His attorneys also requested oral arguments to make their case.
After winning the presidential election for the 5th time, Russian leader Vladimir Putin spoke at a concert in Red Square. The concert marks the 10th anniversary of Crimea's formal annexation by Russia, with Putin promising to build a new rail link in areas liberated by Moscow from Ukraine.
Вот только сегодня утром мне доложили о том, что восстановлена железная дорога от Ростова до Донецка, до Мариуполя и Бердянска. Мы продолжим эту работу, и скоро железнодорожные составы пройдут прямо в Севастополь. И это будет еще одна альтернативная дорога для Крымского моста. Вот мы вместо Крымского моста вот так вот вместе, рука об руку, будем идти дальше.
President Putin stressed that Crimea is not only a strategically important territory for Moscow, but it is part of Russian history and pride. He also hailed the return of Ukrainian territories to Russia in 2022.
Касается Новороссии, что касается Донбасса, люди, проживающие там, тоже тогда, в дни русской весны, заявили о своем желании вернуться в родную семью.
Meanwhile, thousands of Russians lauded Putin's victory in the elections. 20-year-old student Anastasia called Putin a hero, saying that if Putin remains in Russia, everything will be fine.
Я абсолютно не сомневалась в том, что Владимир Владимирович Путин победит. Я тоже отдавала голос за него. Я считаю, что сейчас и вообще всегда Путин должен быть. Никто не потянет данную ситуацию, нашу политическую. А Владимир Владимирович, он герой, он сильный, мощный. Если будет он, у нас в стране все будет хорошо.
Я из Чебоксар, приехал специально сюда на концерт. Сегодня важное событие – воссоединение Крыма с Россией. Это наша Родина, это наше Отечество.
Я испытал эту атмосферу, которая была 10 лет назад. То есть все так же, я прочувствовал через себя, и я понял, что мы сделали 10 лет назад, жители Крыма, правильный выбор.
For 14 bodies have been found in an affluent suburb of Haiti's capital Monday as a wave of gang violence rages for a third week. And international efforts have accelerated in a bid to fill a political vacuum created by the impending departure of the Prime Minister. Rose Papaangelos reports.
Port-au-Prince residents say they do not know the circumstances of the deaths, but they say the affluent neighborhoods had been under attack since dawn by what are believed to be armed criminals. Witnesses say gang members attacked a bank, a gas station, and homes in the area. Gunfire continued to ring out during the afternoon. Haiti has been engulfed for 3 weeks in a gang uprising by well-armed groups saying they want to topple Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Last week, Henry agreed to step aside to allow the formation of an interim government, following pressure from neighboring Caribbean countries and the United States. The situation remains dire even as Washington voiced hope Monday that a transitional body to lead the country could be ready soon. The council will be in charge of naming an interim government before elections, which have not been held since 2016. Rose Papaangelos from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A senior U.S. official said that Marwan Issa, the deputy commander of Hamas's military wing and the alleged mastermind of the October 7 assault on southern Israel, was confirmed dead after an Israeli airstrike more than a week ago. According to Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, Israeli military warplanes had targeted Issa and another senior Hamas official in an underground compound in central Gaza. With his death, he became the senior-most Hamas leader to be killed in Gaza since the start of the war. Israeli officials have characterized the strikes as a breakthrough in their campaign to wipe out the leadership of Hamas in Gaza. Experts cautioned that Issa's death would not have a devastating effect on Hamas's leadership structure as they see them quickly replaced. Known as the Shadow Man, Issa was long known for evading the Israel Defense Force and rarely made public appearances.
U.S. President Joe Biden warned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday that a ground offensive on Rafah would be a mistake. The two spoke for the first time in a month amid growing tensions over the war in Gaza. Thomas Eyelikeness has the story.
Netanyahu has agreed to Biden's request to send a team of top Israeli security officials to Washington to discuss its Rafah plans. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says Biden fears the consequences of a ground operation in Rafah.
It would lead to more innocent civilian deaths, worsen the already dire humanitarian crisis, deepen the anarchy in Gaza, and further isolate Israel internationally.
Sullivan says Biden expressed other concerns to Netanyahu about an attack on the city. He says the president wants to know what will happen to the more than 1 million displaced people who have taken refuge there.
They have nowhere else to go. Gaza's other major cities have largely been destroyed. And Israel has not presented us or the world with a plan for how or where they would safely move those civilians, let alone feed and house them and ensure access to basic things like sanitation.
After the Biden call, Netanyahu said in a statement that he had reiterated Israel's commitment to achieving all of the war's objectives. He says that includes eliminating Hamas, freeing all the hostages held by the group, and ensuring that Gaza will never present a threat to Israel.
We have to win this war. The survival of Israel, the future of Israel, in my opinion, the future of the Middle East and beyond depends on this victory.
But none of the talk Monday shows any sign of leading to an easing of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The UN has repeatedly warned of famine, saying 70% of the territory's population is experiencing catastrophic hunger. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell accuses Israel of using famine as a weapon of war. And Borrell had this harsh description of what Gaza has become as a result of Israel's military campaign.
Today is the greatest open-air graveyard. A graveyard for tens of thousands of people, and also a graveyard for many of the most important principles of humanitarian law.
The situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate as the strategists on both sides plan their next move. For many caught in the crossfire of war, there's no food, no medicine, no sanitation, and for many, no hope. Like pawns on a chessboard, these civilians have become dispensable. Thomas I. Likeness from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has consented to dispatch a delegation of officials to the United States for discussions regarding a potential operation in Rafah, as both sides seek to articulate their respective viewpoints.
The Prime Minister agreed that he would send a team. Obviously, he has his own point of view on a Rafah operation, but he agreed that he would send a team to Washington to have this discussion and have this engagement.
This agreement follows a conversation between U.S. President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu on Monday, marking their first interaction in over a month amid escalating tensions over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Washington has expressed reservations about Netanyahu's proposal for an operation in the southern city of Rafah, where approximately 1.5 million displaced Palestinians are seeking refuge, as Israel aims to dismantle the Hamas militant group.
Our position is that Hamas should not be allowed a safe haven in Rafah or anywhere else. But a major ground operation there would be a mistake. It would lead to more innocent civilian deaths, worsen the already dire humanitarian crisis, deepen the anarchy in Gaza, and further isolate Israel internationally.
Scheduled to take place in the upcoming days, the talks are anticipated to involve discussions among military, intelligence, and humanitarian experts from both sides.
A UN fact-finding mission says Tehran's violent crackdown on peaceful protests and discrimination against women and girls triggered serious rights violations. Sarah Hossein, chairperson of the Independent International Fact-Finding Mission on Iran, says the crackdown resulted in 551 deaths. EJ Gonzalez has that story.
The death in custody of Masha Amini after she allegedly broke the country's Islamic dress code sparked the protest in 2022. Independent International Fact-Finding Mission on Iran chairperson Sarah Hossein says the Iranian government's actions amounted to crimes against humanity. She says the use of unnecessary and disproportionate force during largely peaceful protests resulted in unlawful killings and injuries of protesters.
What we found was that security forces shot at protesters and also at bystanders at very short distances in a targeted fashion, causing injuries to their heads, necks, torsos, genital areas, but particularly to their eyes.
She says hundreds of protesters suffered life-changing injuries. Meanwhile, Iran says in an official report that fewer than 300 people died during protests. Kazim Garibabadi, head of Iran's High Council for Human Rights, dismisses the UN report.
Conversely, despite claiming that it seeks to conduct a meticulous investigation to uncover the truth, the so-called fact-finding mission has revealed its true agenda through the publication of an undocumented and unprofessional report. The so-called fact-finding mission proved that it does not have any agenda but to obfuscate and distort the reality.
The Iranian report blamed most of the civilian deaths on rioters and said the remainder were involved in terrorist acts or attacks. Experts cited in the Iranian report said that it was clear foreigners and outside governments had played a part in the escalation of the unrest. EJ Gonzalez for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Chinese property giant Evergrande and its founder Hui Ka-yan have been accused of inflating revenues by $78 billion in the 2 years before the firm defaulted on its debt. The China Securities Regulatory Commission, or CSRC, also fined Evergrande's mainland business Hangda Real Estate $583.5 million. The CSRC alleged that Hui falsely inflated Hangda's annual results in 2019 and 2020. Hui also faces being banned for life from China's financial markets. Hui was also fined $6.5 million. Evergrande did not immediately respond to any media requests for comment. In January, Evergrande was ordered to liquidate by a Hong Kong court.
Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda proposed ending negative interest rates as chair of the policy-setting board, marking a historic shift. This makes Japan the last central bank to exit negative rates, ending an era. It is also Japan's first interest rate hike in 17 years.
賃金と物価の好循環を確認し、先行き展望レポートの見通し期間終盤にかけて 2% の物価安定の目標が持続的安定的に実現していくことが見通せる状況に至ったと判断しました。こうした下でこれまでのイールドカーブコントロールおよびマイナス金利政策といった大規模な金融緩和政策緩和はその役割を果たしたと考えています。
But Governor Kazuo said Japan will still keep interest rates stuck around zero amid fragile economic recovery.
Britain initiates post-Brexit trade talks with Turkey to enhance UK service industries, led by Secretary of State Kemi Badenoch. Trade valued at £26 billion in 2022. From the United Kingdom, Ariane Celestino reports.
Britain Thursday began post-Brexit trade talks with Turkey, seeking greater opportunities for its service industries. The talks were officially opened in London by Secretary of State for Business and Trade Kemi Badenoch and her Turkish counterpart Ömer Bolat. Badenoch's office said in a statement that there are huge opportunities as Turkey has one of the fastest growing economies in the OECD and is home to 85 million people. The UK and Turkey have a strong economic relationship, with trade between the two worth almost $26 billion in 2022. The UK has been seeking to sign trade deals ever since leaving the European Union in January 2021. Besides the EU, it has signed accords with Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. It is currently in talks with Mexico and South Korea, while talks with India drag on. The UK also joined 11 Asia-Pacific countries who are members of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP. It has failed to reach a much-wanted accord with the United States, and instead has signed various non-binding cooperation agreements with individual states. Talks with Canada were broken off at the start of the year after they failed to reach agreement about agricultural trade. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is Ariane Celestino for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, firemen from multiple counties put out a blaze. Mexico tallies a sizable number for desaparecidos. And the harsh Mongolian winter claims millions of livestock. Please don't go away. We've got more stories when Matanang Agila International returns.
It's good to be back! Welcome to Season 3 ng Magandang Araw!
Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw.
Sa una nating episode, nandito tayo sa Anilao, Batangas.
Magandang araw, magandang araw.
Excited ako dahil makakasama natin ang ating first guest.
Akala nyo, walang bayad dito. Ha? I did not even have to sing or dance.
Oh,
Papakainin lang niya ako ng cheesecake mamaya.
Cheesecake lang.
Ganun lang ang kapalit.
sasama niya tayo sa kanyang paboritong hobby.
Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw.
Wala pa nag-i-interview sa akin, ha? Wala pa. Magdahan-dahan ka sa mga tanong mo, ha? Baka ma-eject ka dyan sa upuan mo.
Kaya, tara na!
Good night! Magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw. Let's live together, Sunday 25. Sunday 25.
Flooding in Indonesia's central Java province has worsened after several dams burst. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced by the floodwaters. Jeff Sanidad has the details.
What you see is an aerial view of the Indonesian city of Semarang, much of which is underwater. Local media report that as many as 89 villages have been inundated with up to 80 centimeters of water. The rising water has forced more than 90,000 people from their homes. In many places, the water on the streets is waist deep. Homes are ruined. People are salvaging what they can. Many have lost everything, as well as damaged buildings. Roads have been washed out. And some regions are isolated because of landslides. The government has established evacuation centers in 45 locations. People are being warned about the risk of disease because of a lack of clean water. Crews are working to repair a leak in this dam to stop the flood waters. Jeff Sanidad for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Firemen from multiple counties have battled a massive blaze at a lumber company in Claysburg, Pennsylvania. Authorities have raised a 3-alarm response due to the intensity and potential hazard of the fire. Witnesses said they saw heavy smoke rising from the site. Multiple blasts have been reported from the facility. Police have evacuated people inside the building to safety. Concerns grew over the potential implications for the area's safety and economic well-being. Reports if there have been casualties in the incident have yet to be confirmed.
A bus crash in southern Afghanistan has left at least 21 people dead and 38 injured. The bus collided with a fuel tanker Sunday. Ken Cruz has more details.
Rescuers took the injured to this hospital. 11 people suffered serious injuries, 27 had minor injuries. According to Afghanistan police, the bus first collided with a motorbike carrying 2 people, killing both riders. The bus driver lost control and crashed with an oncoming oil tanker, sparking a fire. The accident killed 3 people on the tanker and 16 bus passengers. A witness says half of the bus became engulfed in flames and he heard children screaming. Images on social media showed charred, twisted metal scattered across the highway and the crushed cab of the tanker. Deadly traffic accidents are common in Afghanistan due in part to poor roads, dangerous driving on highways, and a lack of regulation. Ken Cruz from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A Jetstar flight bound for Bali made a U-turn back to Melbourne after a passenger ran amok, banging the aircraft's cockpit door. Eyewitness footage showed a woman having an altercation with a seated male passenger. Another woman approached and tried to pull away the disruptive passenger, but failed to do so. Meanwhile, some passengers have dealt with unruly behaviors of the instigator. Some claim that the woman spit or spat at other passengers and verbally abused people in her path. Sources said the woman ran amok after she thought someone stole her phone. The pilot then announced that the flight would return to Tula Marine Airport, where the woman remained disruptive during the trip.
Demonstrators from several social organizations clashed with police in the Argentine capital of Buenos Aires Monday. They are demanding the re-establishment of food deliveries to public community kitchens. Ralph Cornell has more.
One protester says it has been 4 months since they have received goods for soup kitchens. Another protester describes the situation as unsustainable. Argentine media reports that protesters block key access points to Buenos Aires and other cities. There are reports that up to 500 roadblocks had been set up around the country. In Buenos Aires, police used water cannons, tear gas, and batons to control the crowds. Demonstrators responded by throwing stones. President Javier Milei's government has been cracking down on protests. With an inflation rate of more than 270%, Argentina is in the midst of a severe economic crisis. About 40% of the population lives below the poverty line. In response, Milei wants to reduce state benefits and cut subsidies for electricity, gas, water, and public transport. Ralph Cornell from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Mexican government announces there are almost 100,000 missing people in the country. It says, however, that some 20,000 people have already been found since August of last year. Angela Patricio tells us more.
Mexico's Secretary of the Interior Luisa Maria Alcalde announces that currently there are 99,729 people missing in the country. Alcalde reveals the recent data from the Registry of Missing Persons under the government of President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. This number earns criticism from search groups and the opposition, accusing the government of trying to disguise the numbers. According to Alcalde's explanation, the government found 20,193 people since August 2023. Alcalde says, according to the government, 86% of the people found were not victims of any crime. She says the majority are voluntary absences. Dozens of search groups in the country have accused the government of passivity in the face of the missing persons crisis in Mexico. On their own, hundreds of families go to wild areas of the country with picks and shovels in search of the remains of their loved ones. Mexico's Registry of Missing Persons includes cases since 1962. A big chunk of these disappearances, however, has accumulated since 2006. This was when the federal government launched a controversial military anti-drug operation. One of the most controversial missing persons cases is the disappearance of 43 students from the Ayotzinapa Normal School in September 2014. Angela Patricio from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Mongolian herders have endured months of extreme cold known as Dzud, claiming the lives of approximately 4.7 million livestock animals. During Dzud, which is the Mongolian word for disaster, temperatures in some parts of the country fall as low as minus 50 degrees Celsius. Mongolia's Emergency Operations Center has already prompted appeals for emergency assistance from the Red Cross. At least 2,250 herder families have lost more than 70% of their livestock as this year's Dzud blankets grazing lands in deep snow and ice. According to the Red Cross's predictions, many more animals will be unable to survive the next few weeks. About 30% of the country's 3.3 million people are nomadic herders living in dwellings known as yurts on the country's vast swaths of lands. According to the United Nations, Dzuds are already becoming more common with climate change. This is the sixth Dzud Mongolia has experienced in the past decade, with herders still struggling to recover after last year's harsh winter, which claimed the lives of 4.4 million livestock animals.
A heat wave stifling Brazil sets new records. Rio de Janeiro's heat index hit 62.3 degrees Celsius, the highest in a decade. Bernadette Ragini reports.
The heat index measures what a temperature feels like, taking into account humidity. The actual maximum temperature in Rio de Janeiro was 42 degrees Celsius on Monday. People did whatever they could to stay cool. They packed the iconic Ipanema and Copacabana beaches. Authorities have issued a health warning and have published tips on coping with the heat. They tell people to stay hydrated and avoid outdoor activities during the day. Things are expected to cool down later this week. Meanwhile, extreme rains are wreaking havoc in the south of the country and are forecast to continue next week. Bernadette Regini for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nvidia has unveiled its new high-performance super chips dubbed Blackwell.
Copper is fantastic, but we need bigger GPUs. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to a very, very big GPU.
Nvidia's super chip is named after David Blackwell, the pioneering black academic inducted into the National Academy of Sciences. The tech giants claim that Blackwell GPUs have been upgraded to become 4 times as fast as the previous generations when training AI models. Nvidia noted that Blackwell super chips would also perform 25 times the energy efficiency. This is to provide the need for energy and natural resources when creating AI when compared to conventional computing.
Blackwell is not a chip. Blackwell is the name of a platform. People think we make GPUs, and we do, but GPUs don't look the way they used to. Here's the if you will, the heart of the Blackwell system, and this inside the company is not called Blackwell; it's just a number. And this is Blackwell sitting next to, this is the most advanced GPU in the world in production today. This is Hopper. This is Hopper. Hopper changed the world. This is Blackwell. It's okay, Hopper. You're very good.
Coming right up, Banksy unveils a brand new masterpiece. Eala stuns a former top-seeded player. And MrBeast inks a major deal with Amazon. Catch the latest in sports and entertainment. Mata ng Agila International will be back.
Dear Bossling, ako po si Venus. Ipinanganak po akong maganda base pa lang sa aking pangalan.
May wrinkles ka na! Ay! Asan? Joke lang, sis.
May kaboardmate po ako, si Miriam, na hindi naman kaganda.
Sige maiwan ko muna kayo.
Uy, sandali Miriam. Para sa'yo yung mga bulaklak na ito.
Judgmental match.
Love, Bossling, and Tali. Tuwing linggo, alas 6 ng gabi dito lang sa Net 25.
Let's net together sa Net 25. Together sa Net 25. Sa Net 25.
Buckingham Palace debunked media reports claiming that King Charles has died. The fake news circulated on March 18 said that the king passed away unexpectedly. It also claimed that the BBC was on standby for an announcement from the royal family and government buildings were flying flags at half-mast. Dispelling the fake announcement, Buckingham Palace affirmatively stated that it is happy to confirm that King Charles is continuing with official and private business. The UK Embassy in Moscow also posted a video onto X saying reports about the death of King Charles are fake.
Locals in North London have mixed feelings after a mural confirmed to be the work of Britain's famous elusive artist appeared at their apartment block and gained worldwide attraction. The artwork, situated in Finsbury Park, shows a wall splattered with green paint that resembles the foliage of a bare tree standing in front of it. The stencil of a person holding a pressure hose, also shown in the work, depicts Banksy's unmistakable art style. Banksy confirmed the mural to be his creation on his official Instagram account a day after the mural sparked an international frenzy when it suddenly appeared in the area. Residents say that they are proud and delighted that Banksy chose their place for his artwork, while some also expressed concern about the possibility of the attraction to cause their rent payments to skyrocket. Previous works by the still unidentified artists are known to have selling points that can reach up to $25 million. Issues of theft and destruction have also plagued his creations over the years, which are often laced with messages of activism. Some of Banksy's most famous clients in his artistic career of more than 20 years include Brad Pitt, Chris Martin, Christina Aguilera, and Kate Moss.
Eala pulls off an upset over former French Open finalist Sarah Errani to move within one win from advancing to the main draw of the Miami Open. Up against the most decorated player she has faced in her young career, the Filipina teen tennis star rose to the challenge and came out firing as she bested an Italian legend in Miami. The Filipina phenom took a commanding 6-3, 6-1 victory over Sarah Errani in the opening round of the qualifiers of the Women's Tennis Association Miami Open. Currently ranked 100 in the world, Errani is a former singles finalist of the French Open. She ranked number 5 in the world at her peak. Errani has made the semifinals of the US Open and the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. Errani is also the former number 1 doubles player in the world and owns a career Grand Slam after winning the Australian Open twice, French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. These sterling credentials hardly phased Eala, who pounced on Errani's service game from the start. Just a win away from barging into the main draw of the Miami Open, Eala fell short to qualify for the main draw. Her opponent, Emilia Arango, pulled off an upset as she suffered from cramps and lost 2-6, 7-5, 6-1 in the final round of the Miami Open qualifier. It was a sorry loss for the world rank number 171 Filipina, who had her fair share of chances to put away the world number 123. She was up 6-2, 5-3, and was 2 points away from winning.
YouTube star MrBeast announces a deal with Prime Video for his own reality competition show, Beast Games, which sets a grand prize at $5 million, the biggest single payout in TV history. The famous YouTube creator, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, has not revealed details about the specific challenges that will be featured in Beast Games. According to Prime Video, the show, which will be hosted by Donaldson, is fast-paced and in high production format, with 1,000 contestants battling it out for the single $5 million payout. In a statement, MrBeast said that his goal is to make the greatest show possible and to prove that YouTubers and creators can succeed on their platforms. He added that Amazon gave him the creative control he needs to make the show happen and that he hopes to make the YouTube community proud. The 25-year-old is the most followed YouTube creator on the platform with 245 million subscribers under his belt. Donaldson also generated an estimated $82 million in gross earnings over a 12-month period that concluded in 2023, more than twice the earnings of any other digital creator. The YouTube megastar is also known to help charitable causes, helping raise millions of dollars in campaigns for the environment, providing basic needs for the poor, and helping victims of natural disasters. He also founded the Beast Philanthropy charitable organization, which has distributed more than 15 million free meals to date for people in need. And to send you off today, here's a quote from Grammy Award-winning American recording artist Solana Imani Roy, known professionally as SZA. I don't have any control over what actually happens except for that I have full control over my will for myself, my intention, and why I'm there. That's all that matters.
You and I have actually talked about it a lot, how it sometimes gets frustrating, feeling as if we can't help what's going on around the world. But in reality, we can help in our own little ways by using our voice or helping out the communities around us.
Which is actually a great consolation.
Yes.
Because that way we can always make, on a daily basis, the decision to be kind to others, like you always say, and affect positive change on people's lives.
And it will make this cumulative difference.
Definitely. If you are still on the road right this moment, please tune in to Eagle FM 95.5.
You can also catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.